We're already at the week 10 mark for fantasy hockey, and the NHL season is absolutely popping off, which is why you're tapped right back into your daily source for fantasy hockey, NHL news, and daily betting breakdowns, the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and another waiver wire special. Let's get this paper.
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back inside the Fantasy and Betting Lab to your number one 30-minute source for everything that you need to get this fantasy hockey loot. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast. Shout out to the everydayers. Much love. Salute. Thank you so much for holding us down and making us your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase at Game Time. Mr. Roden, week 10 already. I don't know how it's happened that quickly. So for me, our one listener league, not so good. The other, a little bit better. I don't know how you're faring overall, but waiver wire Monday will never not be crucial to the success of any fantasy hockey team. So I took a little bit of a different approach this week. I know we've been getting some heat for throwing out some players with too much ownership, even though if you're in a 12 plus, 14 plus team league, it's going to be tricky. However, I'm intrigued to see who you're looking at. So over to you. Who is attracting your gaze this week for the waiver wire?
Yeah, I'm getting by in the casual league, the competitive one. I'm absolutely dominating right now, putting on some pretty good performances. Like you said, we're getting after it on week 10 of the waiver wire target must-adds for this upcoming 7 days. We're looking at guys owned less than 15% for the most part. We're going to have a couple of guys out there between 30 and 45%. But, hey, when you're in an 18 team league, it's going to be pretty tough to find some of the guys we want to talk about. Correct. So we're going to try to get all the insight for you as much as possible, starting with some Columbus Blue Jackets players. I know you've got Damon Severson. I've also got Damon Severson. I also have Sean Monahan on this list as well. I think he needs to be mentioned because he's been very solid so far this season for the Blue Jackets. 22 points in 26 games. He's a plus 9, 14 penalty minutes, 5 even strength goals, couple on the power play, 67 shots on net, 14 blocks, and 12 hits so far this season, playing just under 19 minutes of average ice time. This is actually the third most amount of time on ice he's received in a season. So he's getting a lot of opportunity, a lot of play time in Columbus under Dean Evison, and right now centering that line between James Van Riemsdyk and Kent Johnson, who you mentioned on last week's waiver wire target. So we've been talking about the Columbus Blue Jackets on a regular basis now, especially on every single Monday when we do these must-adds for the upcoming week. This time it's Sean Monahan and Damon Severson. I'll let you talk about Severson. I also like the Columbus Blue Jackets this week. Right now, currently, Sean Monahan is rostered at 44% on Yahoo. Damon Severson rostered at 12%. They have 4 games on the schedule this upcoming week: the Philadelphia Flyers, the Washington Capitals, the Anaheim Ducks, and the Carolina Hurricanes. So 4 games on the schedule for the CBJ team moving forward. And we've been talking about a lot of their guys in the offensive group, so we got to show some love on the back end too.
Very intriguing team for week-to-week streams. That's kind of like the prototypical use for a lot of these players that, look, this Columbus team is a lot better than last season. Obviously, growing pains. Obviously, a lot of young players. However, ripe for the taking. Kent Johnson, he's gone cold in the last couple of games. I appreciate you bringing these players up because that's what you do with the Columbus Blue Jackets. You add and drop, use as you need. Right now, those 4 games this week, making it attractive for me to take a look at this squad. And I know offensively, Steele, they've been pretty good. They sit 9th in the NHL in goals for. So that offensive upside, which is where I'm looking at Damon Severson, he has had a good year. 6 goals, 9 assists, 48 shots on net, 12 PIMs. He chips in with the block shots as well, 50 block shots. And right now he's got points. He's got 5 points in his last 4 games and eating a ton of minutes. He's up to over 22 minutes of ice time per night. You mentioned the 4 games. I mentioned the offensive bump from this Columbus Blue Jackets team. And I love Damon Severson for this week if you need a little defensive boost. And if it doesn't pan out past this week, although right now I'm kind of liking what I'm seeing from Columbus, you drop him and you move on. But for this week, those 4 games and what I just saw from him over the weekend, I love that we're both looking at this D-man who's been pretty valuable over the course of his career in spurts. And right now, that's one of them.
Yeah, I mean, we really like some of these guys that we talked about. We know our boy Troy follower, listener.
Shout out the Vape God.
Yeah, shout out to the Vape God. Look, huge Blue Jackets fan, and a lot of their players are getting after it this season. A lot of their young prospects that we've talked about over the couple of years. So it's nice to see them show, signs of heading in the right direction. A lot of great play recently. 4 games on the schedule this week. If you're not feeling Damon Severson and some of the Sean Monahan, we got some other defensemen and forwards we want to talk about. Another defenseman that I think is a great add. I've met him earlier in the season. Philip Broberg, the offer sheet for the St. Louis Blues. He's back from injury. He's played the last 4 games. He's back on the top D pairing with Colton Parayko. He's getting over 21, 25. He actually had 26 minutes and 51 seconds of ice time against the Calgary Flames the other night. So that one went into overtime, but regardless, he's getting a lot of time on ice right now under Jim Montgomery. He's got 3 points in his last 4 games since returning from that injury. And I mentioned it before. He's currently rostered. At 19%. He's filling all those peripheral categories that you could ask for right now. And again, so far this season, he's got 12 points in 16 games, 17 blocks, 15 hits, and 20 shots on net. So they're the peripherals you'd like to be a little bit higher than they are. Again, he's just coming back from that serious leg injury, back in the early month of November. But regardless, he's going to get a lot of playing time. He's on the second power play unit. He's on the penalty kill unit. He's getting a lot of opportunity to showcase his skill set and what he can do for this team. And especially under Jim Montgomery, I like coaching direction he's going to be, kind of headed towards as well.
There's some pieces here on this Blues team, Buchnevich and others that have been a little bit kind of asleep. And Monty's influence perhaps has made this team look like a rejuvenated bunch. This is a good coach. I don't know what Boston's been doing the last, I'd say, 10 to 12 months. The last
3 coaches.
Yeah, well, that too, for sure. But just in general, for a team that had been somewhat bulletproof in terms of their front office moves, acquisitions, hirings, and otherwise, they have kind of been coming apart at the seams at the front office, and I'm starting to really scratch my head. So that's a really good angle that you brought up. I appreciate that you mentioning some St. Louis Blues here because they're a team that I have my eyes on. You almost wanted to get away from some of those pieces. I still have Buchnevich. I'm hoping this is not a flash in the pan and that Monty has really turned this team around. They got some intriguing pieces here, Steele, and we've got some more to talk about. Let's get there after the break. And, of course, 3-game betting board, only 3 games on the board tonight. But, Steele and I got the picks ready to fire. I got 3 big ones. I'm looking for a bounce back, Steele. It's been a bit of a rough ride over the last 72 hours, but we're going to be back in the saddle big time. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Mint Mobile. Steele and I love a great deal just as much as the next guys, but we're not going to crawl through a hotbed of coals just to save a few bucks. That's why with Mint Mobile, it's easy. Go wireless for $15 a month with a purchase of a 3-month plan. You got to check out mintmobile.com/lockedon. You'll see it right now. All 3 months plans, only $15 a month, including the unlimited plan. Get the new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for only $15 a month when you go to mintmobile.com/lockedonnhl. That's mintmobile.com/lockedonnhl. Cut your wireless bill to $15 a month at mintmobile.com/lockedonnhl. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 a month, and new customers on a first 3-month plan only. Speeds above 40 gigs on the unlimited plan. Go to Mint Mobile for details. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Theater, comedy, music, and of course, sports events near you. Game Time is your go-to. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Create that account at LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
And thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to smash that subscribe button. Share with your friends and family out there. We really do appreciate all that love and support we receive Monday through Friday, 7 o'clock in the morning is when you can find our episodes. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's Monday waiver wire targets, the must-adds for week 10 of your weekly matchups. If you're not feeling some of the names we dropped in the first 10 minutes of this episode, Sean Monahan, Damon Severson, some of those forwards and defensemen, we got loads of options for this upcoming week. On the back end as well, another defenseman that I want to talk about real quickly before I throw it back over to you, Alex Vlasic of the Chicago Blackhawks, rostered at 7% right now. He's got 12 points in 27 games. Look, there's going to be a lot of, we've talked about how Connor Bedard is the only player that is really rosterable from the Chicago Blackhawks at this point. Maybe some of the goaltender Peter Mrazek as a stream, as an option on the fly.
I might talk about the goaltending in Chicago, believe it or not.
Okay, well, that works out perfectly. So I want to mention someone on the blue line because he's about the only other guy that is rosterable at any point this season, and it's Alex Vlasic on the blue line. Top D pairing with Connor Murphy. He's quarterbacking the power play right now. Again, this is a team that struggles a lot right now, but so far he's been one of their best players over the last 5 games. 4 points in his last 5. He's filling out the peripherals pretty solid as well. 63 blocks, 19 hits, 40 shots on net. Like I said, 12 points in 27 games. Very young, big defenseman that can get it done on both sides of the ice. Just not a lot to work with right now, but also I believe the Chicago Blackhawks have 4 games on the schedule. It is going to be a very tough schedule upcoming, and I'll talk about it later when we get to big time bets. But 4 games on the schedule regardless. The New York Rangers, they've got the New York Islanders twice, as well as the New Jersey Devils. So they're going up against the New York teams right now. 3 on the road, 1 at home, but 4 games on the schedule nevertheless.
And I like that you alluded to the cage. And look, these are deeper cuts on this week's waiver wire because times are tough. And if you're even in a league that has 10 plus teams, a lot of the players sometimes that we have mentioned, they can be out. They're not out there. But this week, we're taking a look at some of these more under the radar. And Peter Mrazek was hurt on Saturday night. He's going to be out at least week to week. It sounds like it's Arvid Soderblom time. And that might not jump off the page, Steele, because he has 1 win this season in 7 starts, I believe. I think he's 1-6. However, a little bit of a deeper dig. 915 save percentage and a 260 goals against. He's actually been okay. It's been the team in front of him really letting him down. However, I've already gone out there and added him in both of our listener leagues because this week, it's a tough stretch. There's not a lot of good goaltending options out there on guys who are going to get the run out. This is going to be his cage right now. And the team is still bad, but if you need goalie starts and you need a guy who's going to be the number 1 right now, there are not a ton out there, especially in deeper leagues. So Soderblom definitely out there for you. I know his ownership is 5 or under, except for on Fantrax, where it's at 13%. Take a look at Soderblom in deeper formats this upcoming stretch. If you do need a goaltender steal, it's not sexy, but sometimes I know you last week, you just got to get a body in there to make your minimum starts or something more of a deeper cut. Soderblom is going to be a sneaky little ad for a goaltender. You know how I like tall goaltender steal, 6'4". I think this guy can actually play. So bit of a deeper cut there, but I'm taking a little risk on Soderblom just because I need some goaltending help in a big bad way.
Hey, sometimes you need to start streaming those goaltenders. I did it last week in that matchup against yourself, Alex Nedeljkovic, Spencer Knight, Dan Vladar, some of these guys, some of the backups right now. And of course, Soderblom becoming the starter with Mrazek being injured, of course. 2 more players offensively that I want to talk about. Number 1, Nick Schmaltz, rostered at 25% right now. I actually thought he was going to go the entire season with 0 goals and finish with like 60, 65 assists. But he has been on fire with the puck lately. 4 goals in his last 3 games. He's got 6 points in his last 5 total. He's up to 21 points in 26 games, right there alongside Clayton Keller, of course, for the Utah Hockey Club. He's getting over 18 minutes of average ice time, 60 shots, 14 blocks, 6 hits. You like to see it as much as possible. Again, the power play isn't as great as it can be in Utah, but they're still figuring some things out. Regardless, he's got finally his first 4 goals, and he's on a 3-game goal streak right now 4 goals actually in his last 3 games. He's been very solid right now alongside, like I said, Clayton Keller, Logan Cooley, Sergachev, all those guys who are getting it done in Utah. So I wanted to mention him because he has also been catching a lot of heat recently. Utah, they have 3 games this upcoming week, 2 very advantageous. Minnesota Wild, Colorado Avalanche, and the San Jose Sharks. So I think there can be some high-scoring games, especially in those 3 games this upcoming week.
Hey, I like it. I like also that we've switched it up a little bit on this waiver wire episode, and I think I'm somewhat helping myself here, taking a look at some of these players that I know I'm going to try and go out and get. I already said that I'm taking a shot on Soderblom. I've got 3 forwards now, and I'm not going to talk about them all at once, but these are kind of my 3 favorite plays of the week, and I'm going to start with Ross Colton in the Colorado Avalanche, and let me explain why. 59% on Fantrax, okay. 49 on Yahoo, 50 on ESPN. So of all the players that I've talked about, he's by far the most owned. So that's a little bit trickier, but let me explain. That Colorado Avalanche have the easiest stretch of their schedule, not just this week, but next. Let me hit you with this. Pens, Utah, and Preds this week, to be followed up by 5 games, Steele, Ducks, Sharks, Kraken, Utah again, and the Vancouver Canucks. I have a feeling this is going to be a nice little bit of a heater for the Colorado Avalanche, especially at the offensive end. Almost every single one of those clubs is having fits keeping the puck out of their own net, and Colorado's really starting to cook. Point number 2, he's playing with Nichushkin and Middlestat. Really like that line. Nichushkin starting to cook. This one has offensive boost written all over it. 8 goals for Colton, obviously a bit one-sided here in terms of his value, but I think it's going to pick up in a big way. So Ross Colton this week, tipping my hand a bit. He's probably my favorite ad for the upcoming week and perhaps next.
I like the Ross Colton ad. I mean, again, this Colorado team is starting to heat up offensively. They're getting some of those injured guys back. Again, Ross Colton, Nichushkin, heating up all those players. This last forward I want to talk about before we get to big time bets, of course, throw it back over to you for your last couple of players. But slightly forgotten top 5 draft pick from the 2022 draft. Getting a lot of play right now in the Seattle Kraken lineup. Shane Wright, 4th overall draft pick from the 2022 pick, rostered at 5%. Hey, look, a lot of listeners out there are looking for those deep cuts, those deep picks. We're getting after it. We're here with Shane Wright, 5% rostered on Yahoo right now. He's got 4 goals in his last 4 games. He's centering that third line. You know how I feel about Ellie Tolvanen and Oliver Bjorkstrand, guys who can get it done. You know, have been a very inconsistent this season, so I haven't talked about them a lot. Especially with this Kraken team, the way they've been playing. But regardless, Shane Wright, rostered at 5%. He's up to 9 points in 25 games. He's getting less than 13 minutes of average ice time, 24 shots, 17 blocks, 16 hits. Again, some of those deeper cuts right now. A little bit of a tough schedule this week for Seattle. All at home, but Florida Panthers, Boston Bruins, and the Tampa Bay Lightning. So it's a very tough schedule for them. But Shane Wright, he's got 4 goals in his last 5. He's got the hot hand for them in that stretch of games. So I thought I'd mention him just as one of those deeper cuts out there.
Really appreciate it. And let's continue in that same vein. Alex Newhook is getting a look on the top line in Montreal right now with 2 really good fantasy pieces, quite obviously, in Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield. That immediately is making me pay attention. He also looked really good in the loss on Saturday against Washington. He's been playing actually really good hockey, Steele, and for some reason, I've been able to catch some of that action on Montreal highlights. Yeah, I've been down a rabbit hole. That's okay. He scored a goal on Saturday night in the losing effort. The Washington Capitals are one of the best teams in the NHL right now, and it's not close, actually. And so the fact that they even kept that one close and Newhook is getting that top line look, yeah, he only has 6 goals this year, Steele. You don't get him for the peripherals. He's getting more ice time. And while he continues to play on a top line with Caulfield and Suzuki, he is the perfect week-to-week, day-to-day stream. And I'm really, really liking Newhook. I got one more player that I want to mention very quickly right after the break, and then let's get to bets.
Big time bets, 3 games on the schedule. Lots of waiver wire options for this week. As we've provided from both Flip and I, we're going to get after it after the break. Make sure you're staying tuned for everything you need for the next 7 days of your weekly matchup. This episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place those bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Once again, thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Continue to hit that subscribe button, the follow button, leave a 5-star review. Flip and I appreciate all that love and support you show us. We're going to get to big time bets, 3 games on the schedule for Monday, but real quickly, Flip, your last waiver wire must-add target for this week.
You mentioned a player, I forget who now, but has gone overlooked. Who were you just talking about being overlooked? It was a top pick. I forget now. Oh, Shane Wright being somewhat forgotten about.
Yeah, Shane Wright.
This is a player that I think has also been forgotten about because he kind of had, a bit of a stepping out season back with the Ducks in 2018. And I'm talking about Ricard Rakell, a player that looked like he put a back-to-back 35 goals there for the Ducks, a bad team. And then I know this move to Pittsburgh has really not panned out for the most part. Ricard Rakell is having a sneaky good season, and he's hot right now. He is also, Steele, bringing the peripheral category coverage, 55 hits, 31 block shots, 11 goals, up to 18 points.
Oh, wow.
And guess who he's playing with once again? Yeah, my boy, number 87, Captain Canada. By the way, I wanted to mention this to you. This Four Nations roster announcement has really played a lot of different players in different ways, good and bad. John Tavares gets snubbed. He looks like he's been reshot out of a cannon. Seth Jarvis, who got snubbed by the World Juniors a few years ago, gets added. He's shooting the lights out. So this kind of roster naming has really done. Look at Patrick Laine, gets named to the Finns. He's lighting it up. So it's been very intriguing to see that. I just wanted to get that in there. Ricard Rakell playing with Sid, playing well. Hey, Penguins back alive, 4 wins in their last 5. And Ricard Rakell is out there, 26% on Yahoo, 47 on Fantrax. I actually didn't double check their schedule this week. Regardless, he's playing with Sid and they're cooking. You got to be taking a shot on Ricard Rakell this week.
Filling out those peripherals, I might have to take a look if he's available in some of our leagues out
You're
there.
welcome.
That is a great pickup for this upcoming week. Big time bets though, where we're getting after it with we're getting after it on Monday with these 3 games. Look, I'm going with the same game parlay. I'm staying away from 2 of these matches. I really don't like these matchups right now. Okay. Red Wings and Sabres, it's 50-50. Both teams collapse in the third period. Same goes for the Montreal Canadiens. Third period collapse against the Washington Capitals. They go up against the Anaheim Ducks. I'm staying away from both money lines and overs and unders in both those matchups. I'm solely looking at the New York Rangers taking on the Chicago Blackhawks. And I know that, the morale, the confidence is at an all-time low right now with the Rangers, especially with the way everything happened with Jacob Trouba and his departure to the Anaheim Ducks. We're definitely going to have to talk about that on tomorrow's episode as well. But Same game parlay, I'll get after it right now. Rangers on the puck line for my first pick. This is still one of the better teams in the National Hockey League, regardless of what, internally the team is going through the struggles right now. They're still a very good team with some very solid players. We know the Chicago Blackhawks struggle in the offensive zone. Again, you just said it. Peter Mrazek's injured. They're going with Soderblom, who only has 1 win on the season so far. Rangers on the puck line for the first pick. I'm parlaying that with the Panarin 2+ points. I'm getting after it with the 2+ points. 2 goals for Panarin the other night over the weekend. So I'm feeling the 2+ points. And then I'm going to tease this one down depending on what the odd is. But as of right now, I'm going to take the over 5.5 in this matchup. Depending what the odd is, I could boost it back up to the over 6.5, but teasing it down for some safety here, over 5.5, lock of the night is the Rangers on the puck line.
I love that you brought up Panarin because that's the first pick that I got to get off the chest, and it's actually my favorite and lock of the night. 2+ points for Artemi is my lock of the night. I like when we're in synchronicity here, my friend. Very serendipitous, if you will. I'll keep throwing out some long-formed adjectives if I feel like it. Yeah, that's right.
Word of the week.
Here we go. And word of the episode, getting after it. I think we've said that about 800 times, but that's okay because it's true. Panarin has also in his career cooked his former team. And I think I can do the math on this one. In 11 games, career regular season, 20 points for the bread man. I'm kind of liking that angle on the 2+ points deal. That's the lock of the night. And I appreciate that you're staying away from those other two games. Montreal has been a bit of a reinvigorated team with Patrick Laine in the lineup. I'm not going to say one player who has been very one-sided and an issue over the last handful of seasons is going to resurrect a team back to relevancy. Wrong. But they are playing much better. And at home, a tough barn to play in, especially when the energy is flowing like it is. Last time between these two teams, Montreal shut them out 5-0 at the end of last season. So I'm just going with those two angles. There's not a lot to go on, but I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Montreal overall. Not so much for the Detroit Red Wings, which is why I'm actually okay to take Buffalo here at home. Buffalo has 6 wins out of their last 10 against Detroit. Again, doesn't exactly jump off the page, but it's just how, and both of these teams have been bad. Let's be completely honest. So you're probably right that I should stay away from this one, but I'm going to go with the team that I think has a little bit more fire in the belly right now, and that's the Buffalo Sabres, although both of these teams are seriously trending in the wrong direction. Tough board, dial the bet back. If there's anything to do, really liking that Breadman 2+ points, which is my lock of the night.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just really tough to go with either of those teams right now. The Buffalo Sabres were on a 5-game losing streak. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10. The same for the Red Wings. They're 3-4-3 in their last 10.
Yeah.
So
it's not pretty.
Just, again, looking in the last 10, 50-50 for winning, 50-50 for the overs and unders. It's a tough one to pick from. But again, going with the home team is never the worst idea in this situation. But those are the picks. Those are locks of the night. Definitely hammering the Artemi Panarin 2+ points. Thank you so much for making the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Pod your first listen every single day. Make sure you're staying tuned for tomorrow's episode. Flip and I are going to break down the Jacob Trouba trade to the Anaheim Ducks. We're also going to break down our fantasy hockey teams in the competitive and casual listener league. It's been almost a month since we did it last time. We got to get after it once again. There's the 9th time of the episode. We're getting after it. Thank you again so much for making the Locked On your first listen. For your second listen, you got to check out the Locked On NHL podcast, where the season never ends. The link is in the description below, so you don't have to go searching for it. Part of the Locked On podcast network, your team every single day. From both Flip and I, we wish you good luck with your bets, your weekly matchups. Make sure you get to the waiver wire early on Monday, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.